Get ready to
Bomba!
Welcome to Bomba Live, the show that you've been waiting for. I'm Vanessa Maria Graber, and we are at the top of the iconic Pyramid Club, along with our producer, Taylor Cordatis, and SBS Productions. I'm honored to introduce the founder of Bomba Live for our 2023 Year in Review episode, Ray Collazo.
Vanessa, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Glad to be here.
It feels like well, we're going to get into it. This episode, we're going to talk about the news, the culture, and the people, most importantly, that made 2023. The word that comes to mind is peculiar. It's sort of it's appropriate. It's 23 because it's been an odd year, an odd number. But Vanessa, you seem very energized as we finish up the year here.
Well, I am. You know, the Eagles are doing very well.
Yes, that's right.
It's a Christmas season.
Yeah.
And, it's been an incredible year with lots of ups and downs, but we're still here. And I'd say we're doing pretty well.
You know what? Yeah. And we're going to talk about that in a moment, kind of like not just what we're thankful for, but some personal reflections on the year, but certainly being here and this sort of Bomba Live 2.0 has been a big part of that. Don't forget, speaking of Bomba Live, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page, our audio podcast, and we can download a podcast. And it's really important you subscribe, rate, review, share with your friends because you don't want to miss, and also none of your friends want to miss 1 second of these provocative and insightful conversations con nuestro sabor, nuestra bomba. And this is the show you've been waiting for. Where else can you talk about Philly Camden? Who has the best rice and beans, and really this kind of Puerto Rican Latino perspective on the news and politics that impacts our community. And let's just start from there, Vanessa. Just your opening statement about, as we review 2023 on this episode, just kind of how you're feeling, just your opening thoughts about when you reflect on the year that's winding down here.
It's been a really interesting year, very newsworthy. Of course, I covered the elections, the mayoral elections, both the primary and the recent general election here in Philadelphia. We're already amping up for the 2024 elections. We've seen really historic climate events happening all over the world, including here in the United States. Shout out to the people in the Dominican Republic right now dealing with flooding. And we have, a very serious crisis in the Middle East right now with what's happening in Palestine and Gaza. So 2023 has certainly kept me on my toes. And it just shows how important, again, the role of journalists, right? And getting critical news and information. And the role of people like us who are breaking it down for you and letting people know why it's important to pay attention, why it's important to be civically engaged and to have a role in your community. And for me, that's the biggest takeaway, right? Is that we can't sleep on what's going on because so much is happening. And, the future of our communities and our families really depends on our participation and how we help one another, right, in our community. And so when I see people in Gaza helping one another, right, amidst such chaos and destruction, it really brings me back to that, right, that simple thing about being kind to your neighbor and putting all of our differences aside in times of crisis. And so I anticipate that 2024 will not be any less newsworthy and eventful. So we better buckle up and we better, start forming good relationships with our family members and our community because we're going to need each other more than ever.
Yeah, 2024 is going to be a crazy year, and we'll get into this a little bit more in the show. But it certainly, to your point, Vanessa, it highlights the importance of journalism and supporting journalists and protecting journalists more than ever, and in programs like Bomba Live. We'll talk more about kind of the news headlines in a second, but I just wanted to share a personal reflection that this year really gave me the strength, I guess, for lack of a better term, to really make myself more vulnerable on the show and in my content. And a couple things, one of which I've shared a fair amount over the years, which is kind of like, doing this is such a big dream of mine, it's such a passion of mine, and feeling just a lot of anxiety about it not being what I want it to be. And so being here at the Pyramid Club and working with XBX Production and working again on a regular basis with our team is a big part of that. But the other part, and I shared fairly recently, and I encourage people to check out a few episodes ago when I reflected on my 49th birthday, not too long ago, is that, my mother has been dealing with dementia for like last 5, 6 years, and just how that's impacted my life. And a lot of I've kind of come to grips with the fact in 2023 that a lot of the anxiety I have about the show, wanting for the show to progress, really goes back to the fact that on some level, whatever we do moving forward, my mother, because of her mental state, probably won't fully appreciate. And almost feeling like as you get older, you kind of always feel like you're kind of running out of time on some level, but then feeling like, I ran out of time because my mom's here, and God bless, she's, you know, for mid 70s, a pretty healthy woman overall, actually quite healthy, other than, her memory loss. But the fact that the more you come to grips with it and you're honest with yourself about what's really bothering you, it's given me a little more strength to share. And I know a lot of people are dealing with those kind of situations as caregivers. And there was even some people at our recent event that wanted us to focus more on that kind of content. And we'll certainly do that in 2024. So on a personal level, that was some big milestones for me, which are not a small thing. Vanessa, anything else you wanted to share kind of about the year just in general before we talk about our latest sponsor, and then we'll get into some of the news headlines?
Yeah, I mean, I think with a few of our episodes, we've talked about health and mental health, and the importance of taking care of yourself. So as we wind out the year, we know it can be really stressful time of year.
Yeah.
But we both have experienced some health issues in
Yeah.
the last year or two, and it really changes your perspective on things. And so my advice is like, take care of yourself and each other. And it really humbled me, because when you depend on other people to take care of you, you'll realize who your true friends are. And in my case, I had a lot of really good people.
Yeah.
It wasn't the opposite where I'm like, all these people. I was like, wow. I was like, I was really feeling the love, I was really just so humbled by all of the people in our community, the community we've built, right?
Yeah.
That stepped up to make sure that I was good, and especially people at my work as well. And that's
Me
what I
too.
say when we need to build community, because when that kind of stuff happens and you have the support and solidarity of your community, they're the safety net, right? And they catch you. And so my goal, not that I do like New Year's, what do you call them? Resolutions,
Yes.
right? But just in general, is to keep building out that community.
Yeah.
And we had a very beautiful event celebrating Bomba Live. And that was another moment where
Yes, it was.
I felt the love in the room, right? It was
Yeah.
just like, wow, look at all the people showing up for us, supporting us, and cheering us on. And so I feel like that really lays a good foundation for us for 2024 to continue doing what we're doing.
No question about it. Before we get into the found translation, some of the other segments, of course, our seminal Wepa segment, which everyone always talks about. I wanted to give a shout out to our great friends at the Latin Podcast Awards. Vanessa, you were a big part of this when we were honored in 2022 to receive the Latin Podcast Award for Best Video Podcast for our work that we do here. And want to give a shout out to the Latin Podcast Awards, really the Oscars of Latino podcasting community. Check out on their YouTube page, Latin Podcast Awards, and on Latin Podcast on social media, their 2023 award show, which happened recently. The founder and sort of the go to Spanish language media, Felix Montelada, actually helped MC our event, came all the way from Alabama. So very big supporters of the Bomba Live vision. Vanessa, I mean, you're as big a part of the Latino audio movement as anybody with your work in podcasting and radio. She's got more podcasts than Shannon Sharp Taylor at this point. So I know that this association with the Latin Podcast Awards means a lot to you.
Absolutely. Again, it's from our people celebrating specifically what we do, and the folks who are involved with that do such great work that getting that recognition actually means a lot. And it just shows us, again, we're doing well, and we should
That's right.
continue doing what we're doing. I don't want to brag, but I work on 3 different shows, and all 3 of those shows won awards this year.
Look at that.
So
Look at that.
I'm not saying I'm the magic ingredient, but
Vanessa Hertz. He didn't know her middle name. All she does is win. You know what I mean? That's it.
no, what I mean to say is that we have some really great people in
Yeah,
Philadelphia,
yeah,
that and a lot of us met at Philly Cam, right? So
that's right,
that's kind
including
of
us.
that's
Yeah,
more than that magic ingredient. And it's places like that that has brought us together and to give us the tools we need to create. And years later, now that we've been doing this, like, look, we're winning awards, we're having events, we're in the Pyramid Club. So I would say that, like I said, we're doing pretty well. That's why I'm energized today.
we definitely encourage people, if you're a Latin podcaster, whether in otro idioma, either English or Spanish, you could be in Spain, you could be in Costa Rica, you could be in the United States, whatever you're doing in the content space, we encourage people to not only participate and check out the Latin Podcast Awards so you can kind of see who's the best of the best in your space, but also we encourage people, nominations are already open for the 2024 awards. So we encourage people to go to LatinPodcastAwards.com and check out Latin Podcast Awards on social media, submit your podcast, as we'll be doing again, because we're greedy like that. You know, we just want to keep winning chips here at Bomba Live. On the Founding Translation segment of the show, Vanessa, we wanted to briefly touch on a couple of the news headlines that, dominated our, kind of the climate of our community here. So just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of start or continue the conversation we were having earlier. And then, because there's certainly lots of news this year that's going to not just impact us quite a bit this year, but is going to impact us, I believe, quite a bit in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing that sticks out for me is a mass movement building around the world that's global. And for viewers that don't know, my background is I have been a movement journalist, a journalist that's been covering social movements and protests and trials of activists, everything involved with organizing. Since 2002, 2003, I was a student who got involved in the anti war protests with Iraq and Afghanistan and realized quickly there was a media blackout. And that's why I decided to start producing independent media and interviewing people. And I've been doing that for 20 years. Of course, I was very involved in covering environmental movements and anti-fracking and Black Lives Matter, anti-police brutality movements. With my work at Free Press, movements around organizing against big telecom companies, right? We had protests here at Comcast and Verizon. So I have a lot of experience, right, in terms of seeing how people come together, organize, and fight for different issues and rights. And what I'm seeing now is sort of
Yeah.
unprecedented, which is a global movement against colonialism. And it's not just in support of the people in Palestine, but colonized peoples everywhere. So you're seeing a lot of connections to the Sudan and the
Yes.
Congo,
Yes.
and of course the Caribbean, right? Like, what's happening in Haiti and Puerto Rico and all around the world. And so as a journalist, I've been to these protests. I was in Washington, D.C., covering the protest a few weeks ago that had over 300,000 people in attendance. I haven't seen that many people on the streets since the anti-war protests back in 2003 and 2004. And what was notable to me is how diverse it was, right? And I
Hmm.
was like, this is the United States, right? There's Latinos, there's
Yeah.
Black people, there's Middle Eastern people.
I mean,
There's
there's a fairly notable Jewish population that's very involved in
Oh
these
yeah, there
issues.
was a lot of Jewish people, a lot of Muslims, they're Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interracial, right? It's
Hmm.
intersectional, interfaith, and also intergenerational, right? There was a lot of high school students there.
Yeah.
There was people much older that are involved in the peace movement
Yeah.
in the 60s,
It's
right?
really hit a nerve. And to your point, unlike 20 years ago, kind of post 9/11, that even though there's challenges with protecting journalists and getting balanced information out about what's happening in the Middle East, social media, you can only hide so much. And I think that that's kind of been a big uh, trigger for, to your point, this bigger conversation. I think, the political class missed it. The media, it's like, that why did this hit such a nerve, this whole issue, is, to your point, is that it opened this sore around this global conversation around colonialism, the fact the United States still has colonies, including where we're from, Puerto Rico. The fact that, to your point, around the fact that you know, the messaging around the political class was like, oh, the global communities picked a side. It's like, well, if you actually kind of look at the world, you know, and not just Europe or the Western world, it's actually quite different. Vanessa, how do you think this? And obviously, you know, it's just the whole situation is incredibly tragic, and the people that we've lost, and you know, there's still, you know, there's millions, over a million people that are homeless now. I mean, there's just, this is not going to get it resolved anytime soon. What other lesson do people take from it, kind of as we wrap up 2023, we should be focused on?
Well, there's real power in our voices,
That's right.
right? And the
That's right.
fact that
Very good point.
people in Gaza are filming what's happening to them right now,
That's right.
and that we're having these parasocial relationships with the journalists on the ground and worrying if they're alive or not, that hasn't happened before. And then now people are reporting, like I said, from other parts of the world and saying, hey, we're experiencing something similar. This is what's happening over here. And for folks who don't follow social media, and I know that other folks on our team use, we all use social media a little bit differently. What I'm seeing is the explosion of TikTok, right?
Hmm.
And the way in which young people, I mean, really it's people of all ages, but young
But
people
particularly young. Yeah, I
really
agree.
dominate TikTok,
Yeah.
have had this opportunity to research and show their hot take on something. Now, it's a sea of voices, right? So some of it's
Yeah.
not great, some of it's excellent. But you know, that's something you and I had when we were younger, right? This
Hmm.
this ability to find more information, to film stuff. But what's really impressive to me is the way people are looking at media and looking at the propaganda and pointing out what's wrong with it. And that shows to me a high degree of media literacy, right?
Hmm.
That people are looking at the headlines from the New York Times and saying, this headline is very misleading, or finding corroborating or missing information. And that hasn't quite happened before. Instagram is being used in a different way because there's a lot of censorship happening on TikTok. So a lot of people have then gone to Instagram to post a lot of more graphic videos that we wouldn't see on the TV
That's
news,
right.
right? So, you know, not to get too graphic, but, you know, images of war are very devastating. We're
That's
not
right.
used to seeing that.
Yeah.
And
In
that,
movies, you know,
right,
or
yeah.
like an iconic picture from Time Magazine, and you know, one Vietnam, and even those photos from that era changed the debate in the United States.
Absolutely. I mean, when they started putting embedded reporters in Vietnam, that really, you know,
Yeah.
changed public opinion. And so, you know, our ability to see these videos and hear one another and compare notes and have dialogue about these issues, I think is really interesting. And so, you know, I think, like I said, that's why we're seeing a global convergence, because it's like everyone is, we've had more access now to the internet and digital technologies than ever before. And it's a historic moment, in my opinion, right? If
Absolutely.
you're following the way information is being shared, despite the censorship and all the other stuff, it's really historic. And so, as a media creator, right, and we're like independent media, we're like kind of like media entrepreneurs. This is very exciting,
It is
right?
exciting, and kind of holding big tech and social media platforms accountable to censorship, and that's becoming a bigger issue. The work I do at Unidos US, we're really weighing in on the equity issues around AI. So that's something that's going to be a bigger and bigger topic that I want to delve into more here, because there's so many implications of all this stuff. And then obviously the journalism and making sure that our folks have nuanced and accurate information about the elections next year. You know, the other headline, and you know, we're going to have all year to talk about it next year, is as we leave 2023, we have a former president and leading presidential candidate from one of our major parties that, you know, tried to overthrow the government as he left office a few years back, has 91 felony indictments, and has been uh, has been pretty open about the fact what his agenda is going to be if he were to win next year, which is, you know, authoritarianism, and, you know, with a white Christian nationalist flavor to it. And so, all that being said, he still probably has a 45-degree shot of winning, just because, to your point around this, you know, this challenge around getting people just accurate, factual information about what's really happening, and challenging people to get out of their silos and really just look at things for where they're at. And it impacts both sides, because part of the reason that Trump and that agenda has some life left in our country is that there's a whole lot of people ain't too happy with Biden either. And this issue in the Middle East has sort of opened that wound around more progressive elements of the Democratic coalition not being happy with how this has been handled the last 5-6 weeks. But to your point, there's a lot of hope because of that activism. There's movement, and there's they're trying to the administration certainly trying to deal with a very, very fine line that they're having a tough time doing. Really, you mentioned the local scene, Vanessa. Anything else on the local political stuff you wanted to mention?
Um, yeah, I mean, again, we should just be paying attention, right? Like, even if you don't agree with an issue, anytime people's voices or First Amendment rights are being suppressed, we should be paying attention to that. We should be worried about that, and we should be advocating for everybody's right to free speech. It's what makes the United States unique, right? Our ability to criticize the government or bad actors and to be able to take to the streets to express our point of view. As things continue to escalate, we're seeing a lot of more aggressive police behavior. And, this summer we covered a lot about the police, right? So, in regards to the Eddie Irizarry case and his murder. And so there's a lot of concern there. It's something that I will be watching. Again, like, I am a huge proponent of First Amendment rights. And I want to make sure, especially all these young people, that their voices are heard, right?
That's right.
That everybody,
And the Irizarry family's voice is heard.
yeah,
We're still with them
absolutely.
and his family.
Everybody
100%.
has a right, again, to hold people in power to account. So, there's been a lot of repression on college campuses, especially at the University of Pennsylvania and other Ivy League schools, as as it's related to student organizing. And I mentioned that I was a student when I got activated, right? And I,
Yeah.
I was involved in
I remember
so
when I was censored years ago
No,
on,
so
on,
I
on an Ivy League campus. So yeah,
I see these young people
know,
doing
yeah.
what I was doing 20 years ago,
It's interesting.
and not having, because they never censored us where I went to school. They let us do whatever. So, because I teach college students, like, I'm concerned about them. And anyway, like, if they take away someone else's rights to free speech and to free assembly, they're taking away our rights too,
That's
right?
right. That's
And
right.
so it's only a matter of time before they come for us, which is why we need to have a united front and make sure that people continue to have the right to freely assemble and speak freely and be able to use their voices on social media and the internet to express themselves.
Between thinking about the hope that comes out of 2023, people from in Puerto Rico have just had it. Between the campamentos, this growing the ongoing progressive activism that's happening with, like, Colectivo Feminista, and that's been happening for many years around these different social issues. There's a fairly decent shot that this new third party coalition in Puerto Rico has a substantial shot of doing some, potentially winning, a couple of these island wide races next year. The influencer class, everybody's just tired of all of them. And so I think the power of social media and being able to get information out to our community on the island and in the diaspora, outside of the corporate media on the island, gives me a lot of hope, because there's a lot of optimism, and people feel empowered to express themselves. So there's a lot to do on the island, and the diaspora, Vanessa, we're kind of feel more empowered than ever to engage in what's happening on the island. So there's a lot of optimism. I walk away. There's a lot of angst in our community, but I walk away with 2023 feeling good where we're at, feeling our folks have hope that they can make change.
Yeah, well, something that I read on social media, I don't remember where it's quoted, so sorry. But it was basically like lamenting the fact that a lot of people are checked out and they don't even have an opinion because they don't really know what's going on.
Yeah,
And so at this
information
point,
deserts.
our greatest tool is political education,
Yep.
right? It's the most important thing we can be doing
Yep.
as organizers, as people involved in the political scene, as journalists, as educators, is to let people know what's going on. And one of the things that I learned a lot, through social media, to be honest, is the collapse of the medical system, the healthcare system in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And I've been following doctors and nurses and medical students who have been reporting from the front lines. There's been a lot of strikes and protests, and a lot of advocacy for wanting more resources and funds for that medical system. And so, again, I would not know that if people didn't take the time to explain, hey, did you know it takes several months to get an appointment with a doctor in Puerto
Yeah.
Rico? Do you know why? And then doing like an explainer.
The doctors sharing information about why they feel like they have to leave the island or
Yes.
the struggles they're dealing with. I would follow PJ Sinsuela, who's a big hip hop artist, but also a medical doctor in Ponce. And he often talks about, in a way that's really engaging for young people, these challenges from an activist, but also as as a medical doctor.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, some of the work that I've done in the last year has been teaching people about Puerto Rican history. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I never had a class in Puerto Rican
They
history.
certainly didn't teach it in Catholic school in the hood.
No,
That's for
definitely
sure.
not in North Philly either.
Yeah.
Although your dad probably was involved in more history sharing
Yeah.
than most people. But I think it's something we need to get back to, right? Sharing the history of the island and our culture, and also how it relates to the other islands and Latin America
Yeah.
in general. And so if you're a parent out there, like, this is a great activity to do with your kids. You know, you don't have to know him, but there's like a lot of YouTube videos. There's a lot of books. There's so many resources.
Philadelphia too, with Diana, and there's a lot of local events you can go to, and obviously they have a bookstore there. So there's local resources as well.
Yeah, but it's super important. Like, knowing where we came from helps us know where we're going.
There's a I haven't had a chance to connect with them. They invited me to speak to them, but there's a and I don't want to share the brand because I haven't connected with them yet, but there is a big movement that's being announced where they want people, which is going to be exciting, and I want to be a part of this next year. They want people from the diaspora to go back to the island, and so more to come on that. But there's going to be a lot of fun stuff. We're going to take a quick break and check out this clip, a Best of Bomba Live clip. We come back, we'll talk a little bit about some of the cultural news in our infamous Wepa segment. We come back here on the 2023 recap edition of Bomba Live.
How does it feel for you both to be such a strong influence on the Latino community and in the freestyle world? I'll start with Brenda.
You go first. Okay. I think the most important influence is that it doesn't matter where you come from, that if you're very optimistic and if it's something that you are passionate about, you should always work your hardest to be able to achieve your goal. And it doesn't, really need to be something where you look at a career or this is something that you want to do forever and say, I could never be famous, because there is always opportunity.
Don't forget to subscribe to Bomba Live on YouTube, and then we can download an audio podcast for the show you've been waiting for. I'm here with my co-host, the Philly Rican herself, Vanessa Maria Graber. We're wrapping up here 2023, our 2023 recap edition. On this final segment, Vanessa, our Wepa segment, which you set off on social media, we got to talk, we're only a few days here from New Year's, and, Puerto Ricans, we don't need any excuse to party, but certainly the biggest party night of the year. Just a thought, Vanessa, give people a little primer on how Puerto Ricans do New Year's. Just give us one or two things, some essentials that we should be thinking about here. If you want to do it for real,
So the first thing is that it's not just New Year's, right? Like,
yeah, it's
Christmas, Navidad.
And it's not even the end.
Starts November 1st. It goes all the way
No
until
doubt.
the 17th of January.
I've had a tree up
That
for months.
includes, right? It's like we put Christmas stuff, then we do have a little pause for Thanksgiving, but then it's full on Christmas
No doubt.
partying.
Christmas Eve,
Yeah, parandas.
Christmas.
Parandas are, it's like a group of people playing instruments,
Puerto
singing, and
Christmas
dancing.
caroling. Yeah, we go to your house and we demand to go in, and we
And
demand
you got
you
to
to
come out
feed
with
us.
a tray of drinks.
Yeah,
in order
and
for us
drinks.
to go
Yeah,
away.
yeah. This is not a dry party.
Right. And then, we have the Feast of the Three Kings. And then we have the El Festival de San Sebastián.
Chacho.
So
That is up here.
it's a
Sunsets
lot.
are oft unbelievable too.
So
It's like
listen,
incredible.
Unbuckle that belt, put the stretchy pants on, because you about to eat and drink
No doubt.
for like
we
2.5 months.
can do it without like just shooting the guns in the air randomly, which we used to do a lot back in the days. God, I remember Ozzie Virgil. This guy played with the Phillies in the 80s. Actually got shot with a bullet that came down, and that was like a big thing in Philly. But anyway, the Vanessa, what's your go-to beverage for New Year's?
So yesterday I just made a batch of coquito.
Nice. Very nice.
Because I love
Taylor, you down with coquito? You drink that stuff? Okay, Taylor's down with coquito. Okay,
I
we'll
love
get him a
all
batch.
things. I love all things coconut. So my other go-to drink is a pina colada, and it really
Nice.
depends where I'm at. Last year, I actually spent the Christmas, New Year's, and Three Kings in Puerto Rico.
Nice.
So on December 25th, because the real party's on the 24th. So 25th, people just chill. I was on the beach with my pina colada, and I was a happy camper.
Damn.
So I
Very
really,
nice.
I really do love any coconut drinks. If you go to Puerto Rico, the mojito is very popular,
Yeah.
and what you'll find in different places is different flavored mojitos. So mango, passion fruit, guava. Highly recommend those type of local mojitos, and trying any rum from the Caribbean, because rum in Cuba,
Yeah.
rum in the Virgin Islands. It's
Jamaican,
all
Haiti, all
good.
that.
I
Yeah, no
recommend
doubt.
all of it.
We got to shout out Pitorro. You know what I mean? Which,
Okay, so Pitorro
come on now.
is another
That's New Year's
classic.
right there for me.
It all depends on who makes it, because people got real crazy with it. So Pitorro is just like a homemade
It's
liquor.
rubbing alcohol with some stuff in it that I can't really describe.
Okay, so I've traveled around the world, and every country has their own version of
Absolutely.
Pitorro. They have their
It's
own
moonshine.
homemade
Puerto Rican moonshine.
Lincoln
Yeah, it's another way to-
liquor. And in Puerto Rico, you get an old bottle, you fill it with the liquor, and then you put fruit in it, or
Yeah.
you put peppers in it. So it can be savory
Yeah.
and like kind of spicy, or you can put pineapples in there, or some other type of apples. And again, like someone breaks out the Pitorro when you're over, that means they like you. 'Cause
No doubt.
That's like the special stash, and it's been sitting for a while.
Oh, no doubt. No
so
doubt.
it's like, oh, you brought out the Pitorro for me, like thank you. Like
Yeah.
I
It also cures pneumonia if you rub it in right. The shout out to our Dominican fan with the Mama Juana, which is kind of like the Dominican version of it. So there's a lot of fun stuff. Vanessa, any final words here on the 2023 recap edition?
Wow. Winding up a very intense year. But I always bring it back to the love that we have for our culture, right? Like
Yeah.
we do this for the culture. We do it because we love being Puerto Rican. we love our Latinidad. And there's nothing wrong with having pride for who you are and where you're coming from.
Yeah, and we'll talk about more about this on another episode, Vanessa. I want to talk to more. But probably the thing I love most about being Puerto Rican is that we're so loving about everybody. So it's like Taylor, we've adopted him. Like he's Puerto Rican to us already, and so just the fact that we're able to bring not just Puerto Ricans and other Latinos, but just so many people to the table in a spirit of friendship, in a spirit of understanding, and a spirit of respect and determination. Because and I shared this on a recent episode, is that with Christina, is that I do this because I want to prove the haters wrong about us, and the Badlands, and we've talked about that in other episodes. So the fact that we're able to, if we have we don't have seats at all the tables, so we just made one our own here on Bomba Live.
That's right. And again, it's like just our ability to show all of our differences, but also what brings us together.
Absolutely.
I think is what makes the show really cool, because I watch Christina and Dionelli and Sulai, and they all have very different takes on things.
Yeah.
And I just
Different styles. Different,
and
interests,
I find that fascinating. Like, and of course you have your own flavor, but it's like, wow.
I like the eye roll that went with that comment, but that's fine.
We share all these cultural
No
things
doubt.
in common,
No doubt.
but we are all unique. And we all have very interesting perspectives. And that's what I love so much about doing this show and showcasing, the people in our community. So thank you. Thank you for
Thank
the
you, Vanessa.
opportunity.
Thank you for you always being a big part of the Bomba Life family. What I always call kind of the heart and soul of the fam here. Thank you, Vanessa Maria Graber. Thank you, Taylor Credatis. I just was corrected with my diction. I'm sorry, I grew up in the hood. There's an R sometimes in English. Taylor Credatis, Expect Productions. Thank you so much for producing us here at the iconic Pyramid Club. Thank you, Pyramid Club family. And most importantly, I want to thank all the other collaborators and all of you for being a part of the Bomba Life journey. Have a wonderful 2023. And as my grandmother would say, Happy New Year's!